Maybe we got some magic happening now. Let's see. Ooh, what is up with my camera? Hang on. See if I can, if it's dirty or something. Hi guys. Hello everybody. Good to see you guys. Look at everybody jumping on. I'm just gonna see if like my camera, if, I don't know if you guys can see that, but to me it looks really grainy. Everyone have a question? Yeah, assuming for the collective. Yep, there. I've got some pre-asked questions. Plus, here, let's see if I can use my little glasses cleaner to see if this will help with the camera. Don't. Oh, there we go. Must have just been a little dirty. Now it's so bright that there we go. Ta-da! Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Good to see you guys. Episode 26. That means halfway through the year. Halfway through the year. Unbelievable. But an amazing year it's been. A very interesting year full of all kinds of stuff. So it's good to, it's interesting to look back on where the first half of the year has gone. Okay, I'm going to say hello to everybody. I have some questions that were pre-asked. I call this open mic night. Open mic night, meaning that you guys can ask any question you want, and open mic night for all of our animal companions on the other side of life, to see what kind of answers we can get from them. And then I'm looking to see for one person in particular who Caroline, how we doing? So we have a very special reading this evening for the beautiful Lola. So let's see, let's say some hellos. Hello to Sherry and Jess and Sharon and Caroline, Kim, Jackie. Oh, good to see you, Jackie. And Mel, nice to see you as well. Yeah, it's for all you guys commenting on the weather, it's been a scorcher here all day and the thunderstorms just started rolling in. So fingers crossed everything's cool here, but we've had some pretty good thunderstorms this afternoon that might take the temperature down a little bit. And then we always, and generally, we send that east. So you guys who have been experiencing the super hot temperatures, it'll cool down just a little bit for you guys. So hello to Kimberly and Sherry and Cheryl. Miss Nunya, I think it's Cheryl, right? I'm pretty sure. I got to start writing all of this down. Who is who? Because if Hideous Sales jumps on, I always forget that name. It's funny that Logan's dad, Pat, always puts in the comments, it's Pat, Logan's dad. So I will just catch up on the comments. All right. And who else do I have here? I want to say hello to all of our members first, all of the members and supporters of the channel. And then Karen, how you doing? It's good to see you. How nice to see you. It's been a while since we've connected. Karen, and scroll down a little bit. You guys know, for whoever's watching this on the replay, I always give it a minute or two for everyone to jump on. So you can always scroll ahead. I usually start the content about 5 minutes in. And Jody, how are you? It's good to see you. And who else do we have? I think I said hi to Sharon and Mimi. Very nice to see you as well. Rosie, good to have you here. AM, sent anything from Pacino. I'll see if anything comes through and if there's any specific questions that you want to ask. And the questions that I'm talking about for tonight are like the things that you're really curious about. Not so much on the reading side, like getting a personal message from your animal companion, but like some of the questions I got are the signs that we're supposed to see real or imagination? There were some questions about reincarnation, some questions about consciousness and simulation theory. So I'm really looking forward to addressing that. Coming back as different genders, different species. What really is the Rainbow Bridge, and do all the animals meet there? So I've got all kinds of good stuff. And then you guys can keep posting questions in there throughout the evening. And AM, if you want to let me know your name, I'd love to keep track of that. And then there was me. Oh, thank you. I just answered your question. Are the questions supposed to be generic? They should be about generic. We're not specifically asking questions about our animal companions. If we start to run out of time, I might open it up for, if we start to have more time, maybe I will open it up for that. But you guys know that I have been practicing this now. I set out to do 100 short readings, and it's gone way beyond that. And I'm going to keep on doing these little mini readings as part of our live streams. But I usually do them through automatic writing. So I ask that you send me a picture along with not too many details about your animal companion. It helps if I don't know too much. But just a picture, and if there's anything that you want to say to them or any questions that you want answered, and then I sit down and do a meditation and write the things that come down to me. So like tonight when I do the meditation, I will share with you all the different thoughts that I have. Why am I all of a sudden getting the name? Caroline, tell me, it is Lola, right? Lola is what I've written down for everything, and all of a sudden I'm second guessing myself about the name. Jen, how you doing? And anyway, so I do automatic writing. I sit down in a meditation. I ask to connect with the animal companion. I usually start to get immediate impressions when I look at the picture. Don't ask me how that works because I don't know. You guys know, like I'm the corporate person from 35 years in corporate America who dropped it all when I realized that I had this connection with animals. But don't ask me how. I can teach certain things, and I believe that we all have the ability. But how looking at a picture works, I can't explain how that happens, that I start to get impressions, but then I start to write down. I don't very often do on demand. I'm still a little self-conscious, and I'm just going to be honest about that. I'm still a little self-conscious about being able to answer questions on demand, but maybe this is a good place to start practicing. Hey, Pat, how you doing? And oh, Pamela. Okay, Pamela. All right, so I'm going to start making all these notes. So Pamela is AM. All right, so that I don't forget. And then when Hideous Sales jumps on, remind me of your name, even if you're watching this on the replay. I just crack up at Hideous Sales, and you ask the deepest questions. And sometimes I think that you're pushing me, like not pushing me, but trying to ask a question that is really hard to answer. And I'm good with that. Do that. I love those kinds of questions because it really makes me explore things like simulation theory, which is really kind of cool. Okay, so Sherry has a question here real quick, and then I'm going to start looking up different. I'm going to look up Cheryl, right? I got it. Good. So I'm going to write down just next to Nunya's name that it's Cheryl, just to remember. And yes, Lola, good. All of a sudden I started second guessing myself. And then Sherry says, if your animal companion is only with other animals and likes it that way, will you get to see them when we cross? Okay, so I will add that to my list of questions. I may need you to remind me of that question again as we go down the list. But if they prefer only to be with animals, do we see them again? You'll be surprised, really, at answers to questions like that. The short answer is yes and no. I'll leave it at that for now. Can be, yep, individual. There is so we're gonna talk about all this, and it includes a little bit of the trip down the road to the simulation theory. And Hideous Sales, please remind me of your name. And I'm going to read Jackie's question. You get hits in the shower. Okay. The shower is like one of the number one places to receive information and to make connections with no matter what kind of soul it is on the other side, whether it's a loved one or a loved animal companion. And it's just, I think it's one of those things where just like in that little sweet spot between awake and asleep, your conscious mind isn't all there. You're in the shower, you're relaxed, warm water. It's just a very relaxing situation, and it leaves a little bit of room for our animal companions to come through. And since I practice automatic writing, I have shared this before. It has been a while since I've mentioned it though. I keep a dry erase marker in my bathroom because when I'm in the shower, sometimes the information comes through so clearly and I'm afraid I'm going to forget it. I hop out of the shower and I write it on the bathroom mirror. And that's all there is to that. That's the only way I can do it. Okay, so we're 8 minutes in and I want to get started with some of the questions, but I'm going to do a quick check. Jackie has a question. When connecting with an animal, do they all want to come through or will one come through? Connection. I'm writing this down so I don't forget the questions. And you guys can remind me if I miss connections. Does more than one animal come through? Okay. I don't like to be too quiet on this. I just don't want to miss that question. Struggle with automatic writing. Yeah, I will. I can do another session on automatic writing. I did like a mini session on it it's been a few weeks, but I will. If you guys would like to use automatic writing as a way of making a connection with animals, it is wonderful. I just like to write, so that it does help that, I mean, I don't like to write because I scribble, but I enjoy words. And so words come to me easily, blocks of thought come into my mind. I easily forget them, so I choose to write them down. It used to be that I always doubted them and questioned them and questioned their validity and whether or not it was my imagination. And writing it down helped me realize that it's not my imagination, and to start trusting it and to start trusting everything that I get. But you don't have to use automatic writing. For some people, it's not a thing. But for me, it works very, very well, at least in the beginning, to get us over the hump. And I continue to study this stuff. And I've recently been studying a woman who started out doing automatic writing and then moved on to conscious channeling, which is kind of what I do here. Conscious channeling is when I get one of those downloads that the words just flow, and they flow easily and smoothly and without any thought. And I look back and go, wow, I don't know where that came from. And then she has transitioned into a combination of both now. So she does, and this is just for, okay, she channels interdimensional beings, not animals. But her interdimensional beings come through both as while she's conscious and also in a trance state. So who knows where this will go? Who knows? But I love the conscious channeling, and I love automatic writing. Off track. So let's start with some questions. Phone is slow again in case I take a while to respond. Okay. So just respond. Tell me what your name is. I don't try to ask hard questions. Oh no, that I really think I didn't mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, I like that you push. It feels like you ask some of the tougher questions, and I like that. It forces me to really go deeper than just superficial, and I love it. Okay, let's see what else. Go by Sherry. Okay, so do animals have the same chakras? We'll have to do an episode on the chakras. Mimi, I did promise an episode on chakras, and we never did it so far, but I've still got so many more to go. I say we're on episode 26. We are only on episode 26. There are some folks out there with podcasts and YouTube videos that are on like episode 2026. So we have plenty of opportunity. I'm just going to fix this a little bit to talk about all kinds of things. And yes, they do have chakras. They do have energy centers. We all have energy centers. Everything has an energy center. Every plant has an energy center. The earth has energy centers. So topic for another day. Let's start with some questions. All right. And you guys remind me. Is Lauren. Okay. I'm going to write this down for Lauren. Hideous sales. Okay. Okay. Won't forget that. Let's start with some questions. The first question is, and you guys can ask follow-up questions too. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat. I can't always, it moves kind of fast, and you guys are talking among yourselves too. So sometimes I miss things. Let's start with reincarnation, because there were a couple of questions about reincarnation. The first question that came up about reincarnation came from Kim, and Kim's question was that she had a message that she was soul related to the female companion of her Henry. I think I got this right, Kim, in a prior life. So in a past life, Henry was with somebody else who you now understood is your soul companion. And you can tell me if that's wrong. Yes, that's correct. Okay. And that is absolutely possible. What I want to share with you about reincarnation is that anything is possible. There are no limits. There are no limits, and there are no rules. Reincarnation, if we have been taught about it at all, I mention it because in some traditions, like the Catholic tradition, we're taught that there's no such thing as reincarnation. We're also taught that animals don't have souls and don't go to heaven. So yeah, I bagged that real fast. But that it just depends on our religious tradition. I say that so glibly and so flippantly, but it does depend on your religious tradition, how you were raised. And it came to my understanding as I began to learn more about reincarnation. And as I began to study near-death experiences, I became fascinated with NDEs, or near-death experiences, and started listening to podcasts about NDEs for like tons. I listened to so many that I don't even remember them all. But what I came to understand is that when reincarnation, I want to organize my thoughts in a way that doesn't get too confusing. The first thing is about having a partner who's a soul partner that was with Henry in a prior life. There's a school of thought that says we all have a group of souls that we travel around with all the time, and that we reincarnate with them. And sometimes they're our father, sometimes they're our sister, sometimes we are the mother, sometimes we are the dog, sometimes we are the cat, sometimes we don't come back at all, and we are the guide from the other side for the family who incarnates here. And I like that idea. I really do. And it resonates with me to a point where I 100% believe and feel, and have been shown by my own animals on the other side, that we travel with groups of souls pretty consistently. They're like our besties. And so we experience life here on planet Earth, or wherever it is that we choose to go when we reincarnate. But we are not limited to that, and neither are our animals. We don't have to do that if we don't choose to. If we choose to be with those people, that's wonderful. And sometimes it helps us understand the relationships that we have here on planet Earth, and it helps us manage those relationships a little bit better. And Kim's example was that she instantly knew Henry. Like from the second that he was a puppy, she understood that they knew each other and they were connected and bonded. And that's often the way it works. When we come across people, like there are people in this group that I've met in person that I feel like I've known them for years, for absolute years. There are some of you who I've never met that I still feel that way about, that we've only ever met online. I feel like I've known you guys for years. One of my very, very, very best friends, one of my closest friends in my entire life, I've only met once in person. And she lives in Greece. And so we don't meet in person very often, but the second that we met, we knew that we were sisters. So the same thing happens with our animal companions. Winston, my Winston is an example, and you guys can post some. I always do this because I'm on my screen. The comments are over here. On your screen, they're over there. Winston was only in my life for 2.5 years, and he was absolutely one of my soul pets. And I'll never, ever, ever forget the moment that he popped into my life, because angels dropped him. You've heard this story before. I was not anywhere where a dog could get, especially a little tiny dog. And there was Winston. How would you know that your soul dog has reincarnated? Let's add that to the reincarnations. How do you know? Well, one of the answers is you just know, like Kim would tell you. Kim would tell you she just laid eyes on Henry and knew instantly. There was no question. There was no question whatsoever. Same thing with Winston. When Winston came to my property, which was up at the top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere, there was no way for him to get there. When he landed there, I knew instantly. Like I looked at him, he was shivering and hiding underneath of my RV, and I coaxed him out, and I just knew that he was meant to be there, and that he was meant to stay with me. I went through all the motions. I took him to the vet. We checked for the microchip. I put him on all the websites. I contacted all the rescues and all the shelters, and nobody ever claimed him. But I secretly hoped that nobody ever would, because I wanted him to stay with me. So sometimes you just know, you just instantly understand that is the case. But we'll come back to that. How do you know? So Kim, is it possible that you were related to the female owner in a past life? The answer is undoubtedly yes. And even that you asked the question tells me that you kind of already knew the answer. Who that was could be an interesting thing to explore. Who was that person? And wouldn't it be interesting to see if you could find out before you go back and be reunited with everybody, who that was? So let me know if you have any follow-up questions about that Kim. Leslie, how you doing? It's good to see you. Exactly. Think intuitively. Yeah, we know our peeps, right? And we know, even just talking about humans, let alone animals, we know when we've got a tribe, right? The people that we feel the most comfortable with, the people who accept us the way that we are in our own skin, for good, bad, and indifferent. They just accept us the way that we are, and we accept them, and we take this little journey together. The next question about reincarnation had to do with gender and species. Specifically, can animals come back as other species, and can people come back as animals? And can animals come back as people? And does it have to be the same gender? Could they be girls? Could they be boys? Again, that's a 100% yes answer, because there are no limits. If I can explain this in the easiest way possible, and I know that you just right now take my word for it, but if you start exploring any of this on your own, if you start listening to any of the podcasts, Next Level Soul is a good example of one, but there's plenty more than that, that interview people who have been through near-death experiences, you will start to hear a common thread among the NDEs. And that's that there are no limits on the other side of life. Not only are there no limits, we instantaneously know everything. It's one of the reasons that we come to experience this existence as a human being, because on the other side, we really are infinite intelligence. And as quicker than we can ask a question, we already know the answer. So we can know everything and be anything and be everything. And we literally do come be anything that we want to be. It is life, is the universe experiencing itself. I've said this before too. Life is the universe experiencing itself through us. Imagine if you, which you are, but a piece of the universe, imagine that you were the Big Bang, right? You were the Big Bang, and suddenly you were conscious, and you were aware of your existence, and you knew everything, and you were looking around, and you're like, okay, it's like being alone in Disney World. You're like, okay, well, this is cool, and that's cool, and I know everything. So, but wait, if I know everything and can do everything, let's pretend, let's forget that I don't know how to do everything. And I'm going to make this planet, I'm going to make that planet, and I'm going to make dinosaurs, and I'm going to make people, and I'm going to make volcanoes, and I'm going to make asteroids. And we don't even know what's beyond this universe, because in my mind, it goes far beyond that. And I'm kind of going down the simulation theory right now, but I'm not quite there yet. Anyhow, so it's the universe that's experiencing itself. That means that we can come back as any gender, any species that we choose. Jody knows this. Jody, who's in the comments over here, knows that I have already decided I've got such a connection to birds of prey that I don't care if it's just for 5 minutes. When I cross to the other side, I can't wait to come back as a bird of prey, like an osprey or an eagle or just a beautiful hawk. There are so many things about that I think are magnificent. I study them. I watch them. I just found this I found this beautiful feather. It's a little crinkled, but I just brought it in from outside. And I've got hundreds of these because they just come to me, and I think it's just our natural attraction. So easy answer is yes, they can come back as any gender and any species. So when people ask me let's go with cat, if my kitty cat has crossed to the other side, how do I know? This was also a follow-up question. How do I know that it is my animal companion who has come back to me? And usually it's with the eyes, always with the heart, and we always have a sense of knowing. But if you really needed an extra little decision maker, I can look into an animal's eyes, and you can see the soul. When I look into a horse's eyes, and I see God when I look into those eyes. And the same thing goes with animals. So sometimes it's not going to be the species that you expect. It could be a turtle. I've mentioned that my daughter has the most amazing spider. It's a little spider that has traveled with her from apartment to apartment. It seems to like it followed her in the beginning. She would open a box and there he would be. Move, open a box, and there he would be. And so she created a beautiful habitat, gorgeous habitat for this little guy. He comes at, he's a little spider. He comes out, he plays, he runs around on the table, crawls right back into his habitat. That little spider is some kind of soul connection for her. It's just amazing to watch. So it may not be the species that you think, and I'm not saying that everybody should start looking for pet spiders, but you're going to want to know when you have that soul connection. And you're going to feel it, and you're going to know it, and you can always look into their eyes. And if you have a particular inclination, like I have an inclination for dogs, I call myself a dog person. We all know that. You know, there's dog people, there are cat ladies, there are horse people, and we all have preferences. And in that case, our animal companion will most likely come back in that same species unless we've asked them to show us some kind of a lesson. So there may be a lesson in there, and then they might come back as another species. But there's no rules and no limits for that. So I'm going to check questions real quick as I check that off for reincarnation. Okay, now we're on to recipes now. Macaroni and cheese. Macaroni and cheese. I wonder if anybody liked any of our animals fond of macaroni and cheese? Will they still be there as our animal companion when we cross over if they reincarnate? Okay. That is a really deep question, but a good one. All right. So they're waiting at the Rainbow Bridge, which is one of the questions. So maybe we'll talk about the Rainbow Bridge right now. They're waiting at the Rainbow Bridge. They've crossed because our human lives are so much longer than theirs. And they're waiting at the Rainbow Bridge, and they're all ready for us to come there. But we've asked them to reincarnate. So which you may ask your animal companion to please return to you. And it's all part of the game, the simulation, if you will. It's all part of this wonderful game. And so your animal companion's like, yes, I'm going to come back. Only this time I'm going to be a cat. And the cat comes back to you, and then you die. What happens to the kitty cat then? How do you reconnect with them at the Rainbow Bridge? It's because the piece of us, no matter what it is, the piece of us that incarnates into a physical body is only a very small piece of our soul. The greater part of our soul still exists on the other side of the veil, or on the other side of this life. Our beautiful, wonderful soul, our wonderful, magnificent soul is so big and so broad and so amazing that we call it our higher self. Our higher self is, for lack of a better term, over there. And so is the higher self of our animal companions. So when they go to the Rainbow Bridge, that's for us. That Rainbow Bridge is for humans. It's for humans to be able to manage the emotion of grief. And we could talk about this for days, that the universe wants to feel the emotion of grief. How would we know what happiness and love and joy is if we didn't understand what grief was? So we experience the grief here in our physical bodies. And the way that we manage it is by saying, okay, we've got this beautiful, wonderful little slice of heaven that's just for animals. It's the Rainbow Bridge. It's where they're going to be when we die. But really what happens is we die and our souls are instantly reunited, no matter what form we have taken here on earth or what form they have taken on earth. We are not abandoning them. There is always going to be somebody here as part of that experience who is going to be able to take them into their life. Like there are rescues and shelters specifically for animals whose human companions have crossed. I would love to be one of those people. I would welcome all of those animals into my home. I'd need to buy acres and acres and acres of land, but I would welcome all of those animals in until it was their time to go back. So that is going back to that question. Yes, it doesn't matter. The timing of when we cross is irrelevant on the other side. There's a movie called Heaven Can Wait. It might be Heaven Can Wait. That one's with Warren Beatty. There's another one with Richard Dreyfuss, and he dies. And Audrey Hepburn is his angel. I can't think of the name of that movie. So if anybody thinks of it, put it in there. The time between when he dies and when he comes back to help and be a guide for his fiance is like that. Only it's been years for her. It's been a long time for her, but instantaneous for him. So, and then I won't spoil the rest of the movie with you about what else happens with reincarnation. I'm just going to check this. I had a cabinet spider named Gretchen. There you go. And only a small part about. And honestly, if you'd have asked me that question 5 years ago, I wouldn't have had the answer to it. I wouldn't have had the answer. It's only after making all the connections with your beautiful animal companions and listening to all these stories of people who've crossed to the other side and only to come back to their physical body. I can't even imagine the stories that we could be told if we could hear from the people on the other side. Now, there are mediums who can have conversations like that, but we don't get the kind of answers that we're looking for here because we're not meant to have them. So that's what I think about that. When I often ask my higher self for guidance. So that's all right. So let's go back to the Rainbow Bridge. So the Rainbow Bridge, for Pat, that's Pat's question. Do all animals meet at the Rainbow Bridge? Yes and no was the answer to that question, because for all the reasons that I've already stated, but also because heaven is whatever you want it to be. Heaven, when we cross over, it's whatever we choose. When I close my eyes and I think about where my dogs are at the Rainbow Bridge, this beautiful scene comes to my mind. And it's not the Rainbow Bridge as we expect. The Rainbow Bridge, we often visualize, and even in the little booklet, I forgot to mention the booklet that I want you guys to all have. It's free for everybody. Here comes the sun. We've had thunderstorms all day. The booklet about anticipatory grief, I want everybody to have and share. Totally free, and there's a little part in there for kids. And the part for kids, I did a little explanation of what the Rainbow Bridge is. And there's a beautiful picture of a field and a rainbow and the cats and the dogs and the horses and the butterflies. Everybody's all happy and getting along together. It's not necessarily that, though. Hang tight while I close this. Here we go. I thought we were going to have a cloudy thunderstorm during the video tonight, but so the image that I get, and I would encourage you to sit down in a quiet place. You don't have to go into a deep meditation, but I would focus on my breath so that you can let go of all the clutter, right? That's all around us all the time, all the things, all the human things, all the goofy crap that we have cooked up. Let all that go and give yourself a couple of minutes just to sit down with the soul of your animal companion and ask them to tell you where they are. When I ask Jack and Lucy, it's going to make me a little bit emotional, and I don't care because it's a beautiful emotion. When I ask Jack and Lucy and Winston and Jake, one of my foster dogs, to show me where they are, I get a visual clear as a bell. I can picture it. I'll know this place. The second that I see it, I'll know it. It is a cabin, and it's on a river, and it's got trees and woods, and it's very isolated. And that's where all the dogs are. There's more dogs than just those dogs. And my father is there. Not only my father, but my older brother who didn't make it to Earth before me. So I see them there so clearly, caring for all the dogs, and the dogs are so happy, and they are so happy, and they are the caretakers of the dogs. And it's a wonderful place. And that's my slice of heaven. So Pat, whatever your slice of heaven looks like, that's where your animal companion is. And no animal is ever alone, ever, ever. Some animals, I'm convinced, are actual guardian angels, and they return to their beautiful angel tribe too. I know that Jack, I've said this before, when I do a deep meditation, I can sometimes get Jack to share information with me. And I think that's why he showed me so clearly his signs within the days immediately following his crossing. And then they kind of drifted off, because I got the sense that he was returning back to actual source, that he had lived many lifetimes, and that it was his time to return to actual source. So Pat, that's what I would recommend. If you would like to know what the Rainbow Bridge looks like for your Logan, then he'll show you exactly where he is. And no animal is sad, and no animal goes to hell, and no animal is stuck between worlds, and no animal goes to purgatory. Nobody does, by the way. That's a whole subject for another day, especially when it comes to hell. Nobody does, and especially our animals who are not capable of any deceit whatsoever. In fact, there's a what do I have in here that they can't lie to us? I wrote something about that. It's for Lola when we get to Lola's reading in just a few minutes. Okay, let's talk about signs, real or imagined, and then I want to really jump into, does the soul bond continue after death? That was Katerina's question. I think, Katerina, we answered that as part of all this. Does our soul bond continue? Because there is no death. There's no such thing. Does the physical body come to an end? Does the actual physical heart stop beating? Yep, but everything that was inside that heart goes to the other side. You take it with you. You absolutely take it with you. Okay, where was the question I was going to go with? Signs, real or imagined? That's a good question. I didn't write down who asked me that question. I don't know who asked me that question. Are signs real or imagined? When we receive signs from our animal companions, they are 100% real, no matter what they are. So very recently, I was doing a reading with someone who said that she received a really clear sign. Oh, and my gosh. And during the reading, we received such a clear sign. Like there couldn't be a more clear message that came through. But she had received a sign that was very obvious to her, and it had to do with names and a nickname that she called her animal companion, and then the actual name of her animal companion, and the way that they coincided immediately following her pet's transition to the other side. I'm being consciously vague about names and pet just because I don't want to give out personal information. And then when she started to tell people about it, they were all like, oh, isn't that sweet? What a good way to try and remember your, well, it was more than just sweet. What she was saying was, it was a sign. Don't you see? Can nobody tell me that that was actually a sign? Yes, it was actually a sign. And you guys have asked me this before. Yep. If you have to question, I wonder if that was a sign, then it's a sign. Yes, it's a sign. And when it's so obvious to you that you want to shout it out to the world, like when Jack peed all over the day after he crossed and he's drinking from the toilet and peeing all over the sidewalk out front. I could tell that to 100 people and they'll say, yeah, that was because you were still half asleep and you thought you just heard him drinking from the toilet. And then, oh, of course, it was another dog who made that trail of pee. But what a sweet thing to try and remember him. And if that offers you comfort, then I'll believe right along with you. Well, sorry, guys, it's much more than that. It is so much more than that. Your signs are real. Mel, the beautiful Fresca. And I forgot to mention the cloud thing too. I'll come back to that, clouds. The beautiful Fresca, who was so obvious in a cloud formation. And even the picture doesn't do it justice. And I think you'll agree with me. When we see those signs in the clouds, because clouds are energy that's literally easy to manipulate. And when we turn our mind to the clouds and our animal turns their mind to the clouds, that's how it forms the shape. That's how the imagination works. Your imagination is not something fake. It's not something play. It's not even though we're taught that, oh, that was just your imagination. Stop using your imagination, honey. This is the real world. Well, the real world is crafted from our imagination. Everything that you can possibly see was created through imagination. There is nothing that you have that was not first in somebody's imagination. So use it. Use your imagination. Welcome your imagination to create that sign for you, and it will appear. It's why I say, if you want to get a sign from your animal companion, all you need to do is ask. Ask, and you can ask very specifically what you want that sign to be. And just asking the question will get your thoughts and your connection to the quantum field and your connection to that's a whole other realm of this, and your connection to your animal companion who's in the quantum field, because it's all heaven. It takes all of that energy and it manipulates it into the sign. That's how it works. That is as simple as it works. And the only thing blocking us from believing those signs and seeing those signs is in our head. That's when we start doubting and we start thinking, I don't know, or people are going to think I'm crazy. Don't tell anybody. Nobody needs to know. Nobody needs to know. My whole family thinks I'm nuts, and I'm okay. I personally am okay with that. But yeah, sometimes I don't tell them everything either. Keep it to yourself, but go ahead and use your imagination and allow your imagination to craft the sign that you're looking for. Your imagination here, your animal's imagination on the other side. Literally like a recipe. It cooks it. It creates, and it can be instantaneous when you receive that sign. It can be as quick as you want it to be because there's no time on the other side. Okay, let's see. I'm looking for more questions. I see our pets running and sleeping and rolling around and eating and waiting for us when it's time. They swirl. Oh, see, isn't that wonderful? That's wonderful, Kim. That is a wonderful way to think of it. It can be so glorious. Heaven is whatever you choose it to be. The rainbow bridge is whatever feels right to you, is what the rainbow bridge is. And all of our animals are there. Adorable spider. Yeah. Asked Bobby for a sign yesterday, and within a minute, a squirrel gave my cat and I quite a fun show. That goes back to also a form of reincarnation, which we have talked about in the past also. Not only is it a sign, but it's a form of reincarnation in that animals and even people, animals are very willing to allow other animal souls to come and share with them. It's not like they don't step aside. Their consciousness doesn't disappear. Your dog doesn't give way so that some other dog can come in and look through their eyes at you. And the squirrel doesn't go somewhere. Its consciousness doesn't leave so that your animal companion can pop in and say hello. It doesn't work that way. This is another thing that I would, if you're open to it, only if you're open to it, this is what I would invite you to do. Yesterday, I was taking a beautiful hike, just an absolutely beautiful hike. The view was magnificent. And as I'm standing at it, my eyes couldn't take it in enough. The view was so beautiful. I just couldn't, I just wanted to keep looking and looking and looking and not ever have it stop. I think you've probably all experienced that at some point, whether it's a sunset or a child or something. You just don't ever want it to stop. And so as I was looking, I thought, there might be somebody in heaven who really wants to see this. And I did think of my father. And I thought, my father loved the mountains. And so I stood at the mountains and I simply said, without me being consciously aware, I simply said, Dad, if you would like to look through my eyes and see how beautiful. And I just looked and looked and looked and visualized, using my imagination, that I was allowing my father to see this physical beauty that I know he loved so much. So our animals can do that too. They will often use creatures like squirrels, creatures like birds, any animal that starts to act out of the ordinary and is in your presence, like a robin who constantly shows up for you, Mel. Any animal that does something unusual to catch your attention is doing it for a reason. So pay attention and know that it's usually your animal companion coming through to say hello through another animal. I don't want to skip over simulation, so I'm just gonna put a big star around that so I don't forget as I look at the rest of the questions real quick. We may or may not get to the consciousness question. What is consciousness? And that's a really, 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 really deep question. So we may come back to that one, but let me see what some of the other questions are. No coincidences. That's correct. No coincidences. Abraham Hicks likes to say coincidence. So things that happen at the same time that are synchronicities. They're not coincidences. Makes our day when we see a sign. Oh yeah, right? I love seeing signs. I can see signs in the clouds anytime I choose to. Anytime I want to look at the clouds and ask for a sign, I got it. So that does remind me real quick, and then I'll look at your question, Kim, about clouds. That I want to post pictures of clouds, but I never realized how many, over time, how many pictures of clouds I was going to get. And I never bothered to save them. I saved them, but I never bothered to categorize them or give them any kind of label. So I'm going back through all my photos. I use Dropbox, and even if I search clouds, it doesn't bring them all up. I'm trying to go back and find all the photos that I've received of animal companions or other things in the clouds. So if you guys have any of those that you want to email to read for my pet, send them to me and I will start posting more pictures of clouds. I did post the one from Mel. I have one or two more that I was able to find, but if you want me to share your cloud picture, send them to me. So let's quickly look at Kim's question. Can a cloud formation also be pareidolia? I'm not sure. Oh, the man in the moon. I don't believe that, but some people think that is pareidolia. I don't know what pareidolia is. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar. I'm going to have to look it up. Unless you can share with me a little bit more about what pareidolia is. If I'm saying that wrong, I'm not sure. Is there a meaning to a pet passing on a certain day? Well, I don't know if there's a meaning to them passing on a certain day. There may be. It may be something. It may be something to help you also remember. I know that especially when an animal companion crosses on your birthday, it's like having someone say, please just whatever, just don't pass on Christmas, or just because it'll be a day that I can never fully celebrate again without remembering the sadness of that particular day. And maybe maybe the significance is, especially in this case, if they pass on a birthday, is to remind you that there's no need to grieve on your birthday, that there's no need to ever grieve, because just because they leave their physical body, there is no real such thing as death. And our animal companions want us to come back from that, even though we experience grief, because without grief, how would we know love? But more than anything, they want us to recover from that. Not only recover, they want us to be even better and to open our hearts even more fully with love. So that may be the significance. I have heard of instances, one person in particular that I can think of, who specifically requested not please my birthday, knew of the upcoming, that it was only a matter of time, and little doggy chose not to go until the day after. So that is, I mean, there are communications we can have with our animal companions about dates, but is there particular significance? I am not 100% sure. I'm going to look at the definition of pareidolia: the tendency for perception to impose a meaningful interpretation. So maybe that's the purpose of our perception, is to impose a meaningful interpretation, like flip that on its head. And maybe that's what it's supposed to do. Our minds like to make sense of things. It's been a long time since I've looked at them, but I have pictures. There's like a photo of it's a painting of a woman looking in a mirror, and it's called Vanity. And if you look at it, if you kind of twist your vision a little bit, it's a picture of a skull, or the picture of the old man or the old woman and the young woman. It's like it's a photo. If you look at it one way, it's an old woman. If you look at another way, it's a young woman, and it's all based on your perception. But it's still everything is perception. And I'll give you one more thing, Kim. I think that there's no way to prove that my perception and your perception and somebody else's perception is anything at all close. There is no way, this is getting into consciousness a little bit, there is no way for us to know that the same color blue that I see is the same color blue that you see. There is no way for me to know that the sunset that you see is the sunset that I see. There's just no way to know that. We think we know it, and we have labeled things as green and yellow and blue, but are they really? It's all about perception. So when it comes to the cloud formations, I believe that the energy organizes itself based on our perception and our imagination. And that's the way that it's meant to be. So if they want to label it, whoever they are, if they want to label it, let them label it. But that's what it is. I agree. And if I see something and it resonates with me, right, exactly. You will always know. You will always know. Let's get to the question real quick about simulation, and then I want to do the reading for Lola. Caroline is waiting patiently. This question came from Lauren, and Lauren said, is it possible that what do you think of the theory that everything is a simulation, meaning that we're in this big video game? So there's a couple schools of thought, and I'm going to leave this with you guys. I'll share my thoughts about it, but I'm not 100% sure that I know the answer to this question. If you want to explore it more, again, another podcast, that podcast, Next Level Soul, when he's not interviewing NDEs and channels, he is, by channels, I mean people who go into a trance channel and give insight. He is interviewing people who believe in simulation theory. So because he wants to know about it. So simulation theory is the theory, I'm going to mess it up a little bit, but the theory that this is all just one big video game and that we are characters in the game and that there's some master game player, possibly our higher selves, up there somewhere with the video controller, steering us through this video game. And if we happen to flip over the rock that has the jewels, or if we flip over the rock that has the rattlesnake, that's how our life ends up. I am not convinced that it is a simulation in the fact that we have no control. And if it's us who's controlling it, then that's where the beautiful relationship between us and our higher self is. We can say to our higher self, okay, the game's not going the way we want it to go. Point me in the direction, please, of the jewels hidden under the rock. That's one theory. So if you look at The Matrix, the movie The Matrix, when I say sometimes that we get Hollywoodized, like when we talk about Ouija boards and all that kind of stuff, that we only have Hollywood's version of it, sometimes Hollywood gets it right. And I believe there are people like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and I'm trying to think of some others. I don't know who made the movie The Matrix. I believe that they have insight, and that the way that they're just like these videos on YouTube, I believe that they express their insight, whether they're aware of it or not. They are channeling information, and they're channeling that information in the form of a movie. So if you've ever seen a movie that resonates with you, like for me, it's Close Encounters. And when Close Encounters of the Third Kind is something, since the very first time I saw it, however many years ago, clearly resonated with me. The Matrix, minus all the violence, The Matrix resonates with me in that I believe that we can take the pill, we can take the red pill and step out of the simulation. That's where all this great awakening is happening. We can step out of this version of the simulation and into a version where we are in control. And that is, all of this kind of links together. And I know I'm butchering it in some way. All of this links together in that if we now awaken and step out of the old matrix and into the new, or as Dolores Cannon would say, into the new earth, then we have control and manifestation and law of attraction and creating our own future and creating our own lives and controlling the direction of our life all starts to make sense. And it's people call it quantum jumping. People call it quantum field, prayer, manifestation. I'm trying to think of the other word. Oh, you could even put witchcraft in there. And spells. It's all about whatever we are doing to step out of the current simulation and into a new version that we are happier with, that we have more control over. We are literally, culturally, socially ingrained that things are a certain way, and they're not necessarily that way. That's why I want to normalize. I want to normalize animal communication. I want to normalize mediumship. It's not like the Long Island medium who walks around the local grocery store going, I see your dead grandmother. It is about normalizing the fact that we have access to all kinds of information, whether it is directly to source, God, Buddha, Allah, whether it is with an animal, whether it's with another soul, an angel, an ancestor, an alien. We have access to that information. And if that is simulation theory, then yeah, then we are living in a simulation, so to speak. Are we living in a giant video game that somebody else is controlling? That's the part I'm not 100% sure of. So I will let you guys explore that a little further as well. Let me look at some of the comments. A turkey knocking on my door. Luke died on his mom's birthday. Oh, so there could be significance to that. Yeah, there could be significance to that. A turkey knocking my door, Jen. I don't know what that means. So I must have missed part of the conversation going on there. Tendency for okay. I just had this conversation with someone last week, and how the creators of those movies are getting those downloads. Right? Yeah, I do believe that, and I think if anybody, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. The violence in some of these movies, I think, is completely unnecessary. And it's almost like, I also believe this, and I've mentioned this before. I don't know if it was on these live streams or in another class. I've talked about this conversation that we have, the feedback. It's a feedback loop. It's another form of communication, that it all doesn't just travel down or in to us, that we also have the ability to communicate outwards. So when I pray, and we'll use the word prayer, when I pray, it's a conversation. It's a conversation of gratitude that says, oh my God, today was one of the best days of my life. Thank you so much, my beautiful granddaughter, everything. I'm just so grateful for all of this. This is a beautiful experience. Now, let me tell you what went wrong today. This is the part that I didn't like, and we need to change this. So let's shift this up. This little thing that happened today is a demonstration of what I don't want to experience going forward. So between you and I'm talking to God, or whatever you want to call source. I am talking to the creator and saying, so we created this really cool thing, but we've messed it up somewhere. So let's fix that. And tell me what I can do. Just give me the download. Show me what I can do as a human being to correct a certain situation. Usually for me, it involves animals. But that's just the way it is. I'm drawn to animals. I love being Snow White, and that's all there is to it. So where was I going with that? Oh, violence. That in so many of the movies that are out these days, there's a level of violence that I just think is unnecessary. And so when I have conversations with God, I'm like, when we get these downloads, can we kind of put them in a different form? I love Close Encounters for that reason, because it's such a robust story with I don't have to worry about like the shoot 'em up kind of stuff and the blood and gore everywhere. But yes, I think that there are many authors, artists, creators of all kinds that are receiving downloads, and they use their specific modality in order to express that information and to get it out there. Even the things that I say to you guys on these videos, I believe comes in as a download, and I don't have any other way to express it. The PDF that came through that I created came to my mind because a vet tech at the vet clinic where I work, her dog was diagnosed with cancer, and it's her daughter who is the most upset. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't think that I have addressed this for children. How do we explain this to children? And the next thing I knew, I had this little 15-page booklet, and I want you guys all to have it. It's like open source as I can get it. So if I think they said had trouble downloading the PDF, let me know, because I want everybody possible to have this PDF about anticipatory grief and how we can explain some of these concepts in a way that a child might understand, even though I think our children understand a lot more than we give them credit for, and that the newest generation coming in has all this DNA reprogrammed from all the work that we're doing right now. Hey, Aaron, how you doing? Aloha, mahala, all those other Hawaiian phrases. Gary passed on your birthday. So there may be, if there is significance there for you, then there's significance. If it's meaningful for you, even if it's because now you have trouble celebrating your birthday because it's celebrating, think about celebrating the life that you shared. Think about celebrating not only your life being brought here to earth, but all the time that you got to spend with Gary and the amazing life that you had. A turkey came, like a real turkey came to your door. All right. Okay. I'm all over that. That's pretty cool. Believe the video game theory. Yep. How do we get that PDF? Yeah, I posted in the community. So on the community tab on YouTube, I posted a link. You have to give your email address. That's the only way I can get like the PDF to load. But if I've got your email address already, it doesn't matter. And if you don't want me to send you to emails, it's super easy. You just click the unsubscribe thing. Super, super easy. But that's how you get the PDF. And I also put it up. It's not on the website yet. I'm still, me, myself, and I. The website's getting there. A little bit more work to do with that. Okay, let's do the reading for Lola. Caroline, who has been so patient. So let me tell you about Lola. And Lola's reading is not as long as some of the other little readings that I've received information on, but she had something so profound to say that I think will apply to, we all probably know somebody who experienced this. So I asked Lola, as always, what I do is I ask for a picture. I receive some immediate impressions. Lola, the first impression I got was wise old lady, a smaller dog, and resided in Ireland. And I look at the picture, I receive impressions, I do a meditation, and I ask for a piece or two of evidence that shows that will demonstrate that it's really Lola coming through, and not all my imagination. Although I use my imagination as part of this, I use all of my senses. So after the meditation and receiving those insights, I consciously focus on my senses. I just had this conversation with a client yesterday that the clairs, like clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, those simply mean clear. The word clair means clear, and the other things are our senses: clear vision, clear hearing, clear smelling, clear touching, clear knowing. That's what those are. So I simply ask for my senses to be enhanced so that I can receive information. And then I write it all down so I don't discount it. And I give it unfiltered. So whatever comes through, comes through. So the first thing I got was Lola Bear. Lola Bear, wise old lady. Why did I write the word first and yes? Final, yes. First and yes. Oh, somebody's alarm is going off outside. I hope you guys can't hear that. I don't know why I wrote that. First, yes, or final, yes. I can't read my handwriting. I think it says first, yes, and I don't know what that question is. I got a sense that Lola was someplace a little drafty. Like I got the sense of a draft, and that's only ever happened one other time that I really got a sense of a drafty stone building. Not 100% sure what that means. But drafty and an old bed, like she had an old bed, a comfortable old bed and blankets that kept her from the draft. But wherever it was, there was a draft, but this beautiful bed that she loved to snuggle up in. That's the visual. She was all snuggled and cuddled, like as if we could curl up possibly. When you see a dog like bunching all the covers into just the right way, that's how I sensed that she was. And she had this beautiful little nest. Nest is what comes through for that. And then as I'm using my senses, and she gave me more things that came through as part of the download, but using my senses, I had the sense of a really soft, tender, delicious piece of meat. Now, most of you know that I don't eat meat any longer, but she gave me a sense of like a stew meat, like the most tender, juicy little piece of meat that she was given as a treat. This tender little piece of meat. And one of the questions that came up, I should give you the things first. Money, something about money came up, not in the way that we normally think of money. Money as in she like ate the money, or like there was cash money laying around somewhere. I don't know what that was. I just got a sense that it was money, that she either ate it or chewed it or did something funny with the money. That's what came through. That something happened when she was younger. So Caroline, let me know if that's the case or not. Something happened when she was younger that gave you a scare. And I couldn't quite get the sense whether it was a serious injury or an illness, but I wrote down the word, it gave you a scare. So something happened when she was younger that gave you a scare. Also, was she a chewer? I just don't know. But also, if anybody remembers what a swatch was, God, I'm dating myself when I say swatch, because that swatch is probably older than Lola could possibly have been. But the word swatch came through, whatever that means. She was only allowed to eat chicken as she had Fanconi syndrome. Oh, okay. So, well, a delicious piece of meat is what I got, and she really enjoyed that meat. Swatch. Tell me if that means anything to you. A swatch was, what was it? I don't know. Back in the 80s when we had swatches, the 90s maybe, and it was a kind of watch, but that came through swatch. Marmalade and the movie Moulin Rouge. I just had the song in particular that came through, the French song that's in there from Moulin Rouge. So the question was, and this is where I want to give us the deep information last. So I'm gonna hold off on that in just a minute to see if there's anything else I want to give you first. Okay, I think that I have to go right into it because it all goes together until the very end when, as I'm writing, doing all my automatic writing, my pen ran totally out of ink, if you can see that. And that's almost like that's how I knew that there was no other information to give after this piece of information. So what happened with Lola was that Lola was in Ireland, and this is where I think this is meant for all of us, not just for you, Caroline. Lola was in Ireland, and Lola's human came to the U.S. I think it was the U.S. that you initially came to. I would have to assume that, and it was right as COVID came out, and so all the borders closed, and nobody could go anywhere. Now I know this because when my father crossed, it was during COVID, and I was not permitted to see my father, and so I know exactly what you're feeling. So the question was, if Lola is in Ireland and I am, or me speaking on your behalf, Caroline, I am in the United States, and now I can't go back to her, and I know that she is getting old, and I know that she's sick, and I know that she's declining, and it's going to be years before I can get back to her, right? For some of us, it was years before we could see some of our loved ones. Years. I have a friend who was stuck in Australia. Her whole family's elsewhere. Friends stuck in Australia. People literally unable to return to their animal companions. And this is all, I'm going to leave this not about people, but about animal companions right now. So this is what she had to say. She says, in the most tender way, because animals only know to be honest. They cannot lie, and they will not lie. So she says this in the most tender, gentle way possible. Yes, at first she was confused. She was confused that they, and this was all animals. This is in particular, she says to me, there was an entire group of animals here and on the other side. There was a whole group of animals that actually crossed during that period. There are many animals, just like people, who were not present with their human companions, and it was their time to go to the Rainbow Bridge. Now, there's a whole story in there about lessons and why they would choose that, and because it's all about choice, why we would choose that for them. And we're not going to talk exactly about that. That's not the message they're telling me to give. The message to say is that there was a whole group of animals from the time, I'm going to say it in their words, there's a whole group of animals from the time that we call COVID. Okay, I'm trying to say it without crying. That's why I keep stopping. There is a whole group of animals from the time that we call COVID that they called the lonely time. Try not to. I thought I could get through that without saying, but they call it the lonely time. They don't know what COVID is. We call it COVID. They called it the lonely time. And animals only know to be honest. So in the most tender, gentle way possible, they, not just her, they want us to know that there was a short period of time of loneliness, of confusion, when they did not understand what was happening or where their human companions were. But, and it's an enormous but, and how this was so eye-opening for me. I never considered this before, ever. But they taught each other how to communicate with us. I joke that animals don't ever need to take a human communication class, like a bunch of you jump into my animal communication classes. No animal ever has to sign up for a class. They get it already. But in this case, there was something that they learned from it as well. They taught each other how to communicate across distance through time and space to their human companions, wherever they happened to be in the world. Not every human companion picked up on it, but many of you did. And sometimes you second guessed it, and sometimes you questioned it. But in particular for you, Caroline, Lola is saying, did you ever get the sense that she was with you? Because she was. Here I go. I'm just going to say the words out loud. She said to me, astral projection. She said to me that they taught each other not only how to communicate with each other across time and space to their human companions, they taught each other how to travel across time and space to be with their human companions. So if you ever got the sense that she was with you, if you ever looked out the corner of your eye and thought that perhaps you caught a glimpse of her, if you ever heard her, if you ever felt her presence, it's because she was with you. I can't tell you guys how I thought I was not going to be able to say those words. Astral projection. That's what they taught each other. And it wasn't just her. It wasn't just Lola. The animals each helped each other understand how to do this. And they literally taught each other how to do it. Every time that you spoke to her, she heard you. That was the other thing she told me. Every single time you spoke to her, which I'm guessing because she made it clear. I'm sorry, my nose is running now. And as usual, I'm without tissue. Oh, well, suck it up, Elaine. Every time you spoke to her, she heard your words. She felt you in her heart. She knows that you felt her in your heart as well. At the end, it was only her condition that made her seem like she didn't know you. I'm not going to be able to do this without a tissue. Hang on, guys. Oh, look, tissue. Okay, off camera. I manifested that tissue. At the end, it was her condition that made her seem like she didn't recognize you, and it made her seem like she didn't know you. She did not forget you. She could never forget you. She would, and this is where the pen runs out of ink. She would and never will forget you. And that's where my pen stopped writing. So that was the very last thing she wants you to know. And you can reach out to her anytime. She'll talk to you anytime. Lola will send you messages anytime you choose, as will all of our animal companions. But more importantly, she wanted the animal collective wants the whole world to know that during the lonely time, they figured it out. They figured it out, and they weren't ever without us, because they figured out how to travel to us. And if we go back, for those of us who may have had an animal companion that we were separated from, if we go back in our mind and kind of play armchair quarterback, or kind of relook at events in hindsight, we'll recognize those times. We'll know exactly when they were with us. And you didn't miss it. It's okay. It's totally okay, because they're there. Even though they may be on the other side now, they're always with us. But Lola would and will never forget you. Okay. I'm just going to read some comments real quick. Got a bad fright when Lola was attacked by a dog. Oh my gosh. I didn't want to say, Caroline, isn't that funny when you second guess yourself? This is what happens when you second guess. I didn't want to say that I sensed that it was an injury, like an attack, because I don't like those words, and so it gave you a scare. I didn't have a swatch, but a watch for my fitness class I wore a lot. But did she ever chew it up? That was the sense that I got. She she messed it up. That she broke it in some way. Wonderful and sad at the same time. It is, but they don't want us to be sad. They don't want us to take it in a sad way. That whole period of time, and in some countries it was worse than others. In some states it was worse than others. For those of us in the U.S., it was a time of growth, expansion, and learning. We learned so much. Yes, I think it caused a whole group of humans to live in fear, which and like brought up our worst fears. But there's a whole group of us, and I lump myself into that group. I've never experienced a more, even though I wasn't permitted to see my father, I astral traveled to see my father. There's a whole group of us who used that time to, I would never be doing what I'm doing right now if that time hadn't happened, if that time hadn't occurred. So Caroline, Lola was a wise girl. Yep. Dementia at the end. Yeah, dementia. She literally says that it was just her condition. That was what she called it, her condition. It was simply her condition that made her seem like she didn't know you. She would not and will not ever forget you. She loved to chew through her toys like a shark. That's funny. There you go. There you got it. So I wonder if one of her toys from whatever. It was definitely the word swatch. So I'll have to think on a little bit more about that. Okay, that kind of wraps things up for tonight. Here's what I want to do. I want to do like this Q&A kind of thing going forward, maybe once a month. We'll do it every once in a while, so that as more questions come up and as more people join the community, which I hope you will share with others. I know it's a very unique approach to supporting people with pet loss. I'm doing all the woo-woo stuff, but I think we're meant to, for some reason, this is the way I'm being called to deliver the messages. So this is what we shall do. All right, my friends, Have a beautiful night. Thank you so much for sharing with me. Thank you so much for supporting each other. And if I don't see you later on this week in one of my classes or somewhere, I will definitely see you guys next Monday. All right. Have a beautiful night. Have a beautiful week. May animals light your way. Take care, everybody. And bye-bye.